"Don't get comfortable. Dad left everything to me." My sister Lydia whispered that in my ear at the funeral reception. I froze while relatives watched us. She smiled and said, "You'll see soon enough." She had no idea what the lawyer was about to reveal. My name is Natalie Brooks, and I'm 34 years old. I work as a public school librarian in a quiet town where most days are filled with the smell of old books, paper, and dust. I like simple routines. I help kids find stories they love, and sometimes that feels like the most important job in the world. My life has never looked impressive from the outside. No big house, no flashy career, just shelves of books and a steady paycheck. But my father understood me. He was a quiet man too, thoughtful, calm, the kind of person who listened more than he spoke. When I was younger, he used to sit beside me while I read and ask questions about the stories. "What do you think happens next?" he would say with a small smile. My older sister Lydia was very different. She had the big job in the city, expensive suits, a loud voice in every room. In our family, she was always the favorite, the one everyone praised. Relatives would say things like, "Lydia is going places." Then they would look at me and say, "Natalie is sweet." Sweet, quiet, simple. Those words followed me everywhere. When my father got sick in his last years, I was the one who took him to doctor visits. I fixed things around the house, I cooked his meals, and picked up his medicine. Lydia visited sometimes, usually for a short time. She was always busy. Still, I never argued about it. I believed something simple. Dignity matters more than shouting. I wasn't rich or glamorous, but I had something Lydia never noticed: patience. And the truth. Before the story continues, I want to say something to you. If you've ever been the quiet one in your family, the person everyone overlooks, you probably know this feeling, the one where people assume you don't matter. If that sounds familiar, subscribe to this channel. I'd love to hear your story in the comments. A lot of us carry these moments quietly. And if you believe the quiet ones sometimes surprise people, click hype. Now, let me tell you what happened that day. The funeral reception was held in the church hall right after the service. The room smelled like coffee, flowers, and polished wood. Plates of sandwiches sat on long tables, while relatives stood in small groups talking quietly. Lydia moved through the room like she owned it. "Can someone bring more coffee?" she called to the caterer. "And move those chairs over there." People nodded at her like she was in charge. I stood near the wall holding a paper cup. My hands felt cold. Then Lydia started talking louder. "You know," she said to a group of relatives, "Natalie helped Dad because she had nothing better to do." A few people chuckled awkwardly. She continued, smiling. "Let's be honest, some of us actually built careers." My stomach tightened. I kept my eyes on the floor. An uncle stepped closer and asked carefully, "So, how will the estate be divided?" Lydia laughed. "Oh, please, Dad already told me how this works." She grabbed my arm and pulled me a few steps away. Her voice dropped. "You get nothing." The words landed like a slap. She leaned closer. "I spoke to the lawyer already. Everything's handled." I looked at her, calm, silent. But some relatives had heard, and suddenly their behavior changed. People stopped asking me questions. They stopped including me in conversations. One aunt even said quietly, "Oh, I didn't realize," as if I was already erased. Then Lydia handed me a stack of empty plates. "Natalie, can you collect these? I'm busy discussing the estate." I nodded and began picking them up. The room felt smaller with every step. Then the door opened. An older man in a gray suit walked inside carrying a briefcase. Mr. Raymond Carter, our family lawyer. He cleared his throat and said calmly, "Good afternoon. The will reading will take place this afternoon at my office." The room went silent, and Lydia's confident smile grew wider. The next betrayal came quickly. A few hours later, Lydia organized a private lunch with several relatives to talk about the estate. I wasn't invited. I only learned about it because my cousin Emma sent me a text. She said there's nothing for you anyway. I stared at the message for a long time. Later, Emma called me. Natalie, I'm sorry. Lydia said you wouldn't understand estate matters. I forced a small laugh. It's fine. But it wasn't fine. During that lunch, apparently Lydia made things even worse. She's a librarian, Lydia told everyone. Dad's estate would overwhelm her. Some relatives laughed. Others stayed quiet. But the story spread through the family within hours. Then Lydia called me herself. Her voice sounded sweet. Natalie, I've been thinking. Oh, I said. So here's my offer. Just take $20,000 and sign the paperwork quickly. Paperwork? I asked quietly. Easier for who? For everyone, she replied. I could hear the impatience creeping into her voice. Just take the money and save us the headache. I looked out my apartment window at the dark street. No, I said calmly. She paused. No? No. Her voice sharpened. You're making a mistake. Maybe, but something about her urgency felt strange, and for the first time that day, I stopped reacting. Instead, I started observing, watching, listening, because Lydia was rushing, and people only rush when they're afraid of something. What Lydia didn't know was that my father and I had many quiet conversations in his last months. We spent long afternoons sorting old papers at his kitchen table, letters, documents, photos. The sound of the wall clock ticking filled the room. One afternoon, he looked at me and said, "Some truths take patience to reveal." I didn't fully understand what he meant then, but I remembered something else. A sealed envelope he handed to Mr. Carter months before he passed away. The lawyer placed it carefully into his briefcase. Dad had smiled at me. "When the time comes," he said softly, "everything will be clear." At the time, I thought he meant family memories, maybe instructions for the house. But now I wasn't so sure. The way Lydia acted, the way she rushed me to sign papers, something didn't add up. Still, I said nothing. I simply waited, because sometimes the strongest move is silence. Later that afternoon, I returned to the church hall parking lot to retrieve my car. Mr. Carter approached me quietly. "Natalie?" I turned. He gave me a small nod. "Your father thought carefully about everything." I searched his face. "I hope so." He smiled faintly. "The will is detailed, very detailed." Then he walked away. Meanwhile, Lydia grew more confident by the hour. She spoke openly about selling the house. "That place is worth at least $400,000, she told relatives. She even mentioned a vacation she planned to take once the inheritance came through. People began treating her like the clear winner. They congratulated her. They asked about investment plans. And each time she looked at me with a smug smile. But I stayed quiet, because the truth was already waiting. A few hours later, our entire family gathered in Mr. Carter's office. The room was quiet, except for the soft hum of the air conditioner. Lydia sat at the head of the conference table, like a queen. Mr. Carter entered carrying a thick document. He placed it on the table. 32 pages. Lydia laughed lightly. "Do we really need all that? Let's just get to the main part." Mr. Carter adjusted his glasses. "I believe your father wanted everything read properly." He began. The first pages described personal messages, gratitude for friends and family. Then he spoke about the final years of my father's life. Natalie Brooks provided daily care, support, and companionship. Lydia shifted in her chair. "Okay, can we skip ahead?" Mr. Carter ignored her. He continued reading detailed clauses. The room grew quieter. Then he reached the main section. Regarding the primary residence, savings accounts, and investment portfolio. Lydia leaned forward. Mr. Carter read clearly. "These assets are placed into a trust under the management of Natalie Brooks, who is named primary trustee and beneficiary." Lydia slammed her hand on the table. "That's impossible." Mr. Carter calmly turned the pages. "Your father signed each document with witnesses present." He pointed to several signatures. The room felt frozen. Then he read the final clause. "Your father stated that loyalty, compassion, and presence matter more than titles or income." No one spoke. The relatives who mocked me earlier stared down at the table. Lydia's face had turned pale. For the first time all day, she had no words. The meeting ended quickly after that. Lydia stormed out of the office without looking back. Some relatives tried to apologize, others avoided my eyes completely. I didn't argue, I didn't celebrate. I simply thanked Mr. Carter and gathered the documents. Later that evening, I walked through my father's house alone. The place was quiet. I ran my hand across the old bookshelf in the living room, and I made a decision. I would keep the house, but part of it would become something new, a small reading center for kids in our town, a place filled with stories, with laughter, with possibility. Because my father believed in quiet strength, and in the end, he didn't reward the loudest voice. He trusted the one who showed up when it mattered. If your family ever underestimated you, I want to hear your story. Tell me about it in the comments. Sometimes the quiet ones carry the heaviest burdens, and sometimes the truth takes time to appear. If this story spoke to you, click hype so others who feel the same way can find it. Did this story hit home for you? Let me know by liking the video and sharing your thoughts in the comments. Your voice might help someone else feel less alone. And if you want this story to reach others who have lived through something similar, click hype. Your support truly makes a difference.